We're at Middle Farm Studios down in Devon. Jack is here with his project. So what made you come down here then?
It's the nicest, like, vibiest studio that I found so far. So there's, like, we've done other things. So we did a session in Rockfield, which was great because it's an amazing sounding room, brilliant mic collection stuff. But we really like it here because there's so much stuff. So we don't have to drive a van's worth of backline down. We don't have to bring in loads of... Jono doesn't have to bring all of his drums. So it's literally, he brought 2 or 3 snares with him, 2 bags of cymbals, and that's the drum setup. So they've got a Q kit, a Yamaha, a Rogers, a Ludwig, like there's a whole rack of drum stuff in there, which is amazing. There's line of sight, which is amazing. So on the takes that we've just done, most of the feedback that I gave them was like, just look at each other. Like, you've got that choice in this studio. So Jono can be sat there pulling faces at the time, telling him to like dig in harder or speed up or slow down or whatever it is. Zay's kind of in there, which is the closest I think I've ever got a vocalist to a band without massive amounts of bleed.
It's great use of a space as well, isn't it? A lot of old studios used to do that. I mean, this has obviously been put together by someone that knows how to do albums, because it's like, it's done from a musician's point of view. It's like use the little airlock as a vocal booth, and a fridge storage.
I mean, there's tie lines into everything as well. So Pete, who built it, like, the guitar cab thing is amazing. So there's a rack of guitar amps in the control room. You can patch into any room on speaker cables as well as instrument lines. So there's 2 little things down there that we're running all these heads into the booth from. So it's just options.
That's what I noticed. It's like, you know, the area there is really well used. There's 3 guitar amps in there. Well, 3 cabs, bass and 2 a stereo guitar, and everybody's in here. They've got the equipment. But there's probably nothing in that control room newer than about 20 years old.
When I came into it, I was like, this is obviously someone's studio rather than just like a thing for hire, which is nice because Pete's made a lot of the choices that I would wanted to have made if it was my studio as well. But also, it is not catering to no one. So there's not a Dolby thing that no one's going to use. There's not PMCs because they think that people want PMCs. He's just gone, this is what I want to produce on, and if you also like it, you can book the studio, but otherwise I'm not bothered.
That's a good point, because it's like, I walk in and it's like, immediately I go, I can make an album here. And then I walk in the control room and I listen to what you're doing and I'm going, I could work in here quite happily. There's punch and bottom end out of the room. Nothing sounds hokey, and it's a really good representation of what's going on, and just the vibe of the live sound coming through. You've worked hard to get to that, but I imagine it's fairly easy as well. Yeah,
I mean, having worked in like generic studios where there's not the vibe and there's not the character, it's kind of frustrating because you go in and you're like, well, I'd put a reverb in there, or I'd put a DBX. I want stuff with character and grit, and I want to know that something's broken but it sounds cool on channel 7.
And if it's not broken, you're going to break it.
I mean, that's part of the process, isn't it?
Exactly.
So I mean, just in terms of like even guitars on the wall, like anything that's in there, they're really cool with just pick that up. So I think there's like a 76 Les Paul in there, which sounds incredible. It just, you plug it into the JM pin, it squeals like it should do. And then the other thing is we're in the middle of nowhere, so you make as much noise as you want, but go as late as you like.
And it just feels natural in here, because it is. You know, it's just, it's not, it doesn't even feel like it's been thought about, which is the best way. Walking into a room, a bit like Rockfield.
I mean, I don't know how this was like designed or conceived or anything, but you walk in and it's like, okay, well, my dream room would be a bit of wood and a bit of rock on the wall. For me and for all the guys is getting it right at source, because I know you and I know that you'll shout at me if I don't.
I wouldn't shout at you, I never have.
But we've done, so this is kind of different to, this has changed kind of 2 or 3 times over the 2-3 days. So we were using the Yamaha recording custom for all of the kind of the heavier stuff, because there's more attack in the kick. There's a really nice Ludwig snare that's just got a load of honk on it, so you bash it and it kind of makes the room mics explode, which is great. At the moment, because this was more of like a laid back kind of thing, but it's got some rockier elements in. We've got the Q kick, which is really nice. It's got a beta 91 inside, 47 outside. The kicks, or both the kicks and both of the snare mics are going into a DBX 160 in the control room, so it's not slamming it down, it's just taking the transients off, which if anything, it's just peace of mind going into the DAW, knowing that if he really wants to lay in, I don't have to be constantly pulling faders down. Snare top, we've gone for a Neumann KMS 105, I think it is.
Right.
That was a thing that I think Izzi and I both stole off Peter Miles. So it's just a thing, it's like a better version of a Beta 57.
Yeah. It's a condenser as well, isn't it? So it tends to pick up a bit more. I use condensers top of snare as well, and bottom.
It's not something I'd tried until I'd been here,
Yeah.
and then whenever I've got the option, I'll give it a go. Because previously I was doing a Beta 57 and like a Rode NT55 taped together, so that's pretty much what that is anyway. The only thing is because it is a little bit more sensitive, you can get a bit more hat bleed, but we've just got around that by moving it and moving hats. So snare bottom, we've just done a 57 because
you're lazy.
Well, yeah. But I'm going to cut out all the bottom end anyway and then use it for what it is. Toms, we've got the Rogers Toms on at the moment, but we had the Yamahas on yesterday and we had the Qs before that. What's really nice is being able to swap between coated and clear heads. The clear heads sounded amazing, but they've got way more kind of punch on the low end. Yeah. These are almost a little bit more bluesy, kind of jazzy, so they've got a lot more attack on the top, which is really nice. We've just done 41s on those, because why would you not do a 41?
And it's really open sounding, you know, the kit's breathing. Yeah.
I think I approached it from the perspective of the majority of my sound is going to be the room mics, because that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Overheads we did 184s. They're not too high because if you put them any higher, they become room mics in here.
Absolutely.
But they're just really bright, great for capturing cymbals. But also, we've been moving them dependent on what style we want. So more cymbals, we brought them forward. A little bit more toms, we've kind of pushed them back.
Nice.
And then we've got the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So we've got one of these, which is going into some compressor. It's going into the level lock. Right. So that's just a nasty mic. Okay. This is a suggestion, so not one that I'd used before, but it's kind of like their house thing that they do. What is it? I don't know.
No. Is it Russian or is it new?
It's a GA Projects.
Oh, okay, Golden Age.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. I wouldn't have recognised it, but they do some nice stuff.
We tried a ball and biscuit on there first, and it just didn't really have the top end, so it was kind of a little bit pointless. Yeah. That one was my suggestion, so this is kind of like my version, so there's a 441. I like a kit centre mic generally, because it's kind of like glue. And if I ever feel like kicks and snares aren't placed properly, then putting that in a kind of frequency and to give what I haven't got is normally quite good. That's going into a distressor, and then we've just been doing attack and release depending on the time for the song, just to kind of bring it all together. Room mics.
A couple of rear-facing 414s as well.
Yeah, so we've got room close and room far. We're using that on the guitar amps as well. Yeah. So brilliant. Just literally put the cab there, blast some guitar into them. And then the room fars, which are the 414s, so they're on Omni. So you get a bit of room, bit of wall. And I keep
finding this creek.
And then they, we were doing guitars. No, we were doing drums yesterday. Right. Like Tom overdubs, and I had to say, like, who stood on the creaky bit of floor? Like, can you move half an inch to the right? Kind of
terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, the 414s are going into like an SSL Bus 500 series compressor thing, and the needle's just going like that all day. Yeah. So quite a lot going on with those. Again, like that's kind of our basic setup, and then we've just been tweaking out more dependent on basically timing of the track to try and bring stuff together.
It's quite interesting as well, because it's like you sort of come away to do some work here, and it's not like you've gone, right, we've got a drum sound. Yeah. Because people are obsessed with getting an album drum sound, and it's like, actually, it's got to be song dependent. You do exactly what people should do. I mean,
Jono's a really versatile drummer, which is great.
They're really good players.
He's not a rock player, so he doesn't have, this is my snare drum. He has, this is my snare drum for gospel or for rock or for pop or whatever it is. Yeah. And he brings a lot of cymbals and a lot of options, but normally comes in with a rough idea of what he wants. So he'll put something up, say, how's this feeling? And then most of the time the feedback is, that won't sound great under a mic, but it sounds nice in the room, rather than that's a horrible choice, like what are you doing? But they're all pretty versatile. It's a real mix of characters in the band. So Tom's a metal guy on bass, so he's got like every dark glass pedal on his pedal board, and we've run him into a Fender Twin, which has been fun, but driving the Twin's been really good as well. And Sam is 70 at heart, So it has a blues breaker and a tuner, and that's his guitar sound, and then it's just all in the fingers.
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
There. Do you want to have a look at
go
guitar
for it.
mics?
Yeah. Now the parts they're playing, they're obviously doing. I can't work out how to open a door. It's a slide, you see, slide. Ah yes,
The inevitable 50 hertz.
indeed. Okay, nice.
So if we start with like bass, so it's just an 810 Ampeg
Yeah.
that's seen some action because it's got a death sticker on one of the speakers. Just an RE20.
Yeah.
We found that we've got quite a lot out of that and the EQ on the desk.
Yeah.
There was one song where it was way too trebly, so I just moved it out from the cone. And then there was another one where we discovered that one of the cones was really crackly on the edges,
Yeah.
so we've just literally swapped it onto another cone.
Brilliant. RE20s again, they're sort of really underused.
Yeah.
And they're brilliant mics. I use those with a 91 on kick.
Yeah.
They're brilliant. They complement it brilliantly.
Found like it's 50-50 with some vocalists, but where they work, they really, really work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guitars, when we were doing like the heavier stuff, we tracked all mics together. So we did normally Bad Cat into the Marshall amp and then the Diesel into the Mesa cab.
Yeah.
And just kind of put them stereo field. When we were doing overdubs, I just started getting really selective about which one sounded best. So is the valve work? It's the ribbon working on this one? No, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Is the 57 working? Great, we'll put that on. But the ribbon's been really nice today on the cleaner, stratty kind of chorusy parts.
It's interesting actually because you wouldn't be making those decisions if you had a bunch of outboard preamps.
No.
You've got a desk and the ability to pull faders around and hit cuts and things like that.
Yeah.
You can make choices going down.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bank of like Neve style pre's, which we've got the vocals going through, and we had an acoustic guitar on yesterday.
Yeah.
But it was like I could have put this all on the Neve, but then I'd be having to bend down to change it, and it's another decision that didn't need to be made. Like if it sounds great coming out the guitar cab, and we put the right mic on it, it's going to sound good.
And it is a Trident, isn't it? So it's not a bad sounding desk.
Yeah, like it's not clean. It's got character to it. And It's got some edge to it as well.
But I think that's another point, isn't it? You're going to a room where you trust the monitoring. You're making decisions based on what you're hearing.
Yeah. Zay really likes having reverbs that he can control because he'll sing into them and he'll time them. So we're recording the 224 and the Echoplex and sometimes the plate onto the vocal live. So just being able to give him a knob where he can turn those up and like perform with them, which is what he does a lot live. So I do a lot front of house for them as well.
Right, okay.
So I'll put a lot of the reverb back into his wedge so he can do weird delay effects, or he can like basically layer himself on top of himself using the delays. Otherwise it's just kind of like while I'm singing it dry, so I don't know what the performance sounds like.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of it. I think you made the point about they're all in here, they're all playing together. I think that's a massive part of it because it's not just the interaction between the musicians, it's the instant gratification of the sounds coming at them.
Yeah.
It's like you get a better performance when you enjoy what you're listening to.
Yeah, I mean, the option really is that we give Sam headphones and he can hear a snare drum in his headphones, or he can see Jono whacking it and he can feel the air off it in the room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they're a live band as well. So
Yeah.
we're lucky that we can capture. We did some stuff on the first EP where we tried it with click and it wasn't working, so we just ditched the click and said, do it how you do it live. And I think the only reason that we do stuff to click really is to make my life easier to edit.
Well, I've always said that's most of the reason producers use clicks is to make their life easier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. This sounds really good. They play around each other. It's a guide.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-click.
No.
I am very much anti the idea of if you can get a band in a room together, why wouldn't you? You know, that's double negative, but you should get a band playing in a room at least as a starting point.
Yeah.
And it comes across that you know, you did 4 takes earlier, and they got better. Each one got better, and the vibe was different, and
I mean, I never have the click on in the control room unless I specifically need it to like wave at someone to cue them in or something. So I don't know or care if they've gone off the click halfway through, like so long as it's vibey and it sounds right, then great.
For me, it feels like a musician's studio. I said it earlier. It feels like someone who's been in a lot of studios that wanted to create a space for himself.
Yeah.
That would work for him, and it just works for other people who are like-minded.
I never feel comfortable if I'm bringing musicians into a studio, putting them in a situation where I have to tell them to get their feet off the furniture. Like they should feel comfortable and feel like they can do stuff So the guys are obviously really happy. And the fact there's like the outsidey bits and seeing us. We had a barbecue on the first night, which is lovely.
Nice.
So, like, again, we didn't ask them. They just said, have you got a barbecue? And they said, oh, yeah, there you go.
Brilliant.
So, went down to Asda, got a bit of food, enjoyed the Devon countryside.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to show Mike, this is what I was talking about the other day. This is a little load box with the DSP in it.
I'll show you
Destroying
that.
shit. It's a good thing it wasn't
Otherwise, I
plugged
can
in.
just smell food.
It's very cool.
What do you want to know?
So in the control room, obviously, because there's a desk, you were talking earlier about this patching system for the amps,
Yeah.
which is quite cool. It's just great.
It's really clever.
Useful.
So there's normally like more stuff on there. Obviously, we've got stuff in the live rooms and stuff. But basically, there's a kettle lead and a speaker out.
Yeah.
You plug it in, and then there's this patch panel on the bottom. So it's very clearly labelled speaker leads only. And basically, you can take your head out and then patch it into a cab anywhere. But it's the fastest way of changing heads.
great, isn't it?
Because you don't have to plug out the back and find out what the ohmage is and all of that kind of shenanigans.
Yeah.
So that's really useful, and it's got the signature middle farm horn thing on the top. Again.
Furniture's lovely, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's really nice.
It's just a really nice room. Now, this is relatively new having a desk in here, wasn't this? Was this always here, or was that the other studio?
I think this is relatively new, so it's been here since we've been here, but I think it was just kind of the rack.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a ludicrously powerful Mac Pro behind it,
Right.
so it goes all day long.
Yeah.
But the desk is it's not inline, so it's basically just whatever you put in it, and then the Nero is your monitor controller. They've recently added the extra speakers as well, so we were just on the mains last time we were here, but they're really nice. They're like posh sounding NS10s.
Yeah, Privates are nice, actually.
Yeah, I don't normally go for like an NS10 type speaker,
No.
but they're great.
These have got more bass. These are
Yeah.
these are hi-fi sort of
And
pro
they're-
hi-fi.
and they're positioned really well.
Yeah. It sounds really good in here.
It's not dry sounding.
No.
Which I hate. You just feel comfortable in here
Yeah,
again.
it's
Like
nice.
the sofas are the most comfortable sofas in the world. But it's some really tasty stuff in here as well. Like the Trident is great. We found with the Pre's, like it's got a cool and a not cool setting.
Yeah.
So like 1 bar of red on the meter, that's cool. 2 bars, it's like, well, this is getting a bit hairy now.
Yeah.
But because it's all sent off the back of the channel, you can pull the faders down and absolutely crank it if you want.
That's the point, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
The sub is great as well, so I don't normally...
And it's the other thing which I find cool is that it's the side facing control room looking through to the live room of the band.
yeah.
You haven't got this stuff going on where you're looking over a meter bridge. It's more about the sonics and being able to stick your head down and go, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
And then visual communication all the way through.
Yeah.
It's great. It's really
I
good.
never like a console like looking forward kind of thing, because it feels like you're just glaring at people and not with them. Do you know what I mean? I like the communal thing and like the communication kind of thing, because it feels like you're as part of the performance as the performers. And we were doing some stuff yesterday with the chorus echo where we were like manipulating it live, so it feels like you're playing a part in each take as well, which is really nice.
Have there been any surprises, positive or negative? You're not going to say any negatives, I know, but has there been anything?
It was no.
It was when Mike tripped over the piano. Oh.
It's surprisingly easy to get a good sound in here. It shouldn't be a surprise, but it's like
No.
I think it's fair to say there's like a middle farm sound.
Okay.
In that, like, if you listen to the catalogue of records that have come out of here, so part of it is the fact that Pete and Izzi, but know how to engineer and they do a good job, and that Pete's got his own sound as well. But even when other producers have come in here, there's generally like the room is imprinted into the record, which is really nice. And it is surprising how much of that is just in the room mics. So it's been nice coming at it mentally from a different point of view of, well, actually, do you know what? 50% of this is going to be rooms or like overheads. And then I'll put the close mics in if I need reinforcement. So that's been really nice. The outboard is really easy to use as well, and it's really appropriate for the studio as well. So I think there's like one 1176 in there because in my opinion, if you're using an 1176, you're using it to tame something.
Yeah.
Whereas this is all quite aggressive outboard,
Yeah, I think it's quite. I mean, I feel immediately familiar with it all because most of it is from my era.
Yeah.
I mean, even distressors are quite old, but like 160s and old Focusrite and old Drawmer stuff, it's like, it's kind of what we had 30 years ago, and it still works.
Yeah, it's not a studio for it. You know, you wouldn't do like a full orchestral recording in here because it's not got those kind of like precise sculpting kind of tools. But if you want something that hits you in the face, and you want something where you can do a really fast attack, or you can like push a transient through really quick, these are the tools that you'd choose for. To answer your other questions, like that's the other surprise is that everything here is just artist focused.
Yeah, totally.
It's like,
yeah, you can tell.
yeah,
It's brilliant.
even the chairs are comfy, like.
The most important part of the studio is a chair.
And then like all
And the
of
kettle.
these guitars. The kettle's pretty good. There's a very posh coffee machine that I haven't dared to work at because there's very clear labelled instructions and I feel like I'm not paying enough attention to do it properly.
You haven't done the course.